After the 2022 and 2023 NBA seasons, the Memphis Grizzlies were rising to the top of the Western Conference, and not only just the Western Conference, but the entire league. But things kind of fell off in the 2024 campaign, with their superstar Ja Morant missing games, not only due to suspension, but also with injury once he did return. And not to mention, it wasn't just Ja Morant that dealt with injury. It was like the entire team, basically. They all had the injury bug, which led to them finishing with a 27-55 record, finishing 13th in the West, netting them a top 10 pick in the 2024 NBA draft. And we all kind of just saw it as like a gap year for the Grizzlies, but we didn't know how they'd bounce back considering we saw some teams take some leaps. So we were like, we don't really know where this Grizzlies team is going to be at when they're all healthy. But now they're back in the mix in the Western Conference, and they're showing that they're back because they are third in the West right now at 17-8. And the most important part is they've kind of just been healthy, which is a good thing for a team looking to compete after that injury bug bit them hard last season. For the most part, they've been on the floor, and yes, they've had some guys miss some time, but it hasn't been as crazy as it was. So let's talk about this Grizzlies team right now and why they've been so successful to start this season. In the previous years for Memphis, their identity was kind of just a team that would win the possession war against you, and all of a sudden you look up and they have like a top 10 offense in the league, and they've been like a good defensive team, but their calling cards were rebounding the basketball, not really known as an efficient offensive team, and so far they've been different, and for the better in my opinion. The Memphis Grizzlies right now currently rank as a top 5 team in all of basketball on the offensive side of the ball. And they're not doing it the way that they did back in those 2022 and 23 seasons. They're actually an efficient team. They're in the top 10 in effective field goal percentage, where in those years that I mentioned before, they were below league average. And this stat is kind of a big one because it kind of indicates if your team is truly a contender or not. And if you look at all those previous years and the previous champions, for the most part, those were efficient offensive units. And so far, the Grizzlies have been one of those teams this season. Now, Ja Morant isn't exactly putting up the same stats that he was in the previous years, but he's still Ja Morant. He's still a highly impactful player. It goes beyond the numbers, his impact on the game. And the wealth is being spread amongst this team right now. You look at their team, and there are 6 non-Ja Morant guys averaging double figures. And a few more are right there to be in that double figure picture as well. Guys that won't crack the headlines like Scottie Pippen Jr., rookie Jalen Wells, Santi Aldama, and Jake LaRavia are giving them some really good seasons so far. Not to mention the fact that Triple J is having himself a really good season, putting up his second highest point per game year, averaging nearly 22 points per game. And they've been a good offensive team despite the fact that Desmond Bane, who last season was really good, and he has been like Ja Morant's co-scorer for the past couple years when they're healthy, he's not even like having his best season. And this team is still finding ways to be consistent on that side of the floor despite how he's performing. Then on the defensive side of things, the Grizzlies are still a really good team. They're ranked 5th in defensive rating, making them one of the few teams in the NBA that are both top 5 in offensive and defensive rating, which is also always another major indicator on a team being a true contender to win the title. They're 4th in net rating as well, so it's clear that this team is a legitimate threat to anyone with the way that they've been playing. And the one underrated part about them, or you could say the one other underrated part about them, is because they've been kind of in the spotlight since Ja's arrival in the 2019 and 20 season, we forget that this team is still pretty much really young, with the majority of their contributors being 25 and below. And you also have to think about this. This team's been through some playoff heartbreak already. They've lost to the Warriors in the second round in 2022. They lost to the Lakers, being a number 2 seed in 2023, being upset. So they've been through some things already, and they've been a little more seasoned compared to a team like Houston, who has a better record than them right now, and they're really good and really fun to watch as well, but they haven't been in that spotlight yet, and we're kind of just forgetting that this Grizzlies team has been through some battles already. And maybe it's their turn. Maybe it's their turn to kind of just become like a really elite team and actually be in that contender range. Where in the other years, it kind of felt like they were a really good regular season team, but you couldn't see them beating like the elite of the elite in the league. And now with the way they're playing and you look at the major statistical categories and what they're really good at, this is probably the best team that they've had in the Ja Morant era. If you really look at it, it's incredible what they've been able to do and how they've just been able to have guys plug and play and really just give them some real good contribution despite whoever's on the floor. This Grizzlies team right now, they deserve their flowers, and I'm going to give it to them because I feel like nobody's really talking about them. Right now, they're like a top 5 team in the league, if you want to be real. And they have a legitimate chance, I think, to potentially bring Memphis their first championship in franchise history. Anyways, that's going to do it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out my previous video on the Denver Nuggets and their potential struggles and why they might be falling off sooner than you think with the way they've been playing. This has been the Checkup, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.